the risk assessment component of putting together, working on an automation project, deploying automation can be a stressful aspect, right? What are some things that end users of those who are deploying systems in their facilities can do to approach that more confidently, the risk assessment process more confidently, and in general, what would just make a better risk assessment in your opinion?
Well, one, assemble the team. Two, understand what the process is. And I don't think, I might not have mentioned this quite yet, but when I talk about safety or when I talk about risk assessment, I often like to distinguish between the nouns and the verbs. So the nouns are the things that we see. They're the ones who tend to get all the attention. The verbs are the actions that those things that we see are doing. And I tend to be of the opinion that risk assessment is more about the verbs. So it's more about the action. Well, first identifying, again, the task and the hazards associated with that. So the task is the verb. The task might be get a pallet of fruit off a truck and move it into cold storage. You've got a number of different ways that you can go about doing that. What are the methods that the enterprise is going to utilize? And then what are the associated hazards with those? And the hazard part, this is another tricky area I see as well, because the hazard evaluation assumes that there are no guarding, there's no safeguards in place, and it pretty much assumes the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario in a lot of industrial or material handling applications isn't so great for the individual. And our folks don't like to say the potential for serious injury or fatality is real if we don't do something about this. The whole idea is that we are wanting to do something about this. But I think there tends to be a bit of reluctance in admitting that if we don't do things right, serious incidences can occur. But that we're working on doing those things right so that hopefully those things don't occur. So identifying the verbs, identifying the hazards, saying this could be bad, and then NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, has a hierarchy of risk reduction measures that they prescribe, and they hit upon a couple of discrete areas. So first, elimination or substitution of the task, not necessarily of the equipment or of anything, but or the thing that is causing the hazard in the first place. So in the example of moving a pallet of produce from a truck to cold storage, is there a way that we could eliminate that move? Well, probably not. Is there something that we could do to substitute it? Again, probably not. But to the extent that there's a way that we can eliminate that task from being necessary to do in the enterprise, it needs to be done. Then we look at the exposure pathway. So if we have a hazardous object and we have something that's going to endure the effect of a hazard, so a person, and then we've got the pathway between those. And if we've got a bad situation where all three of those hit, we've got trouble on our hands. So what can we then do to mitigate the exposure pathway? And that gets into our guarding, light curtains, safety sensors, interlocks, fences, gates, all that type of thing. And then we talk about what do the people in the enterprise need to know about. So training, identification of safe work practices, signs, not necessarily protective barriers, but more lines in the road or awareness markings that say let's keep something here and something here, and this is our line of demarcation between them, and then respecting those lines of demarcation. And then ultimately PPE, personal protective equipment. So do we need to wear steel-toed boots, gloves, hats, safety glasses, hard hats, whatever it is, and ultimately being aware that a risk assessment or identifying those risk reduction measures is not just pick one from the menu, but it's often pick several and make sure that those integrate well together, so that if, for example, you have an interlocked gate with around a perimeter zone or a protected area, a person doesn't walk into the gate, close the gate so that the interlock closes and the operation can start back up. So you've got the safeguard, and then you've got the administrative control, the training saying, respect the guard. So ultimately, risk assessment, and it is broad and it's sort of all encompassing, but there is a procedure, there is a process to that. And when it's done well, it really can be an effective tool, but it does need to be administered and done properly. So knowing what you're getting into in advance, knowing your processes, knowing your procedures, knowing your verbs.